Shalom. Welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabados of Dalmar. We're going to continue our thoughts. We've had a few shows on it. It's from a book by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Mind Over Matter, and it's the Lubavitcher Rebbe on science, technology, and medicine. Now, of course, and I explained it before, but you say, well, wait a minute, he's a rabbi. What does he know about science? He should be learning all about rabbinics and Judaism. But the Rebbe, first of all, had a degree in engineering from Sorbonne and also University of Berlin before World War II. They were probably the best universities in the world at that time. And the Rebbe always keeps abreast of everything in science and learns something positive from it. And that's what we're going to do also from his writings, then not being aloof from the world, removed from the world, or, dealing with only past and ancient customs, but keeping up with the latest in science and learning something positive from them. This is a little bit about, we're dealing with aviation and space, and in the same boat, aloft or afloat. Now it says in the Medrash, which is a homiletics of the Bible in the book of Numbers, will one person sin and you will be angry at the entire community? Said Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, famous rabbi 2,000 years ago. This can be compared to people sitting in a boat. One of them took a shovel and began to dig underneath his seat. What are you doing? Demanded his friends. What concern it is of yours, he responded. Am I not digging under my own seat? They said to him, yes, but the waters will come up and drown the entire boat. Astronauts who wish to travel on a space shuttle flight are instructed by Central Command in advance exactly how they must eat, sleep, dress, and behave in all areas of their life. They are told that any deviation can cause the waste of all that is invested in the process, billions of dollars. When a person hears such respectable sums, he acts towards it with awe, even if the money is not his but Uncle Sam's. This is true whether or how he understands the benefits of those specific directions, or the damage caused by refusing to follow them. Only the experts on the ground, who spent years researching the issues, know all the specific details. Similarly, an astronaut doesn't make the mistake of thinking, I'm just one of three, so what difference does it make if I don't do everything I should? I'm just the minority. He is certain of the fact that any deviation from his instruction puts his colleagues at risk as well. On this basis, we may respond to a question that has caused much unjustified confusion and equivocation amongst those whose job it is to clarify such matters. According to Jewish law, quote, if a person eats an amount of non-kosher food equal to the size of an olive, which is about 1 ounce, a Jewish court would be obligated to punish him with 39 lashes. The question then is, how can we meddle into someone's private life? What about personal privilege and the right to privacy? True, in order to actually administer the lashes, the court needs 2 proper witnesses who first warned him about the punishment, and then he had to tell them that he would transgress anyway. They also had to ascertain that he ate the forbidden food immediately following that warning. The combination of all these factors is extremely rare. Nevertheless, this still does not explain the punishment itself. Why is this person's private choice to eat a forbidden food considered a matter of public concern? The Mishnah states, like from the Talmud, man was created alone. For every person must say, for me, the world was created. This world, as well as all the spiritual realms leading to it, was created for each and every person individually. Maimonides makes a similar statement. A person should always view himself in the entire world as if he is exactly balanced. If it does one mitzvah, he is meritorious, for he has weighed himself in the entire world to decide of merit. and he has cause for himself and for all salvation and redemption. If he commits one transgression, woe is to him, for he has weighed himself in the entire world to guilt. Contemplating this situation is sufficient to reach an understanding of this matter. A person chooses not to restrain himself, and as a result of indulging his desires, hurts not only himself, but also his family, the people of his city, his country, and indeed the entire world. Moreover, after he was clearly warned by two witnesses, he proceeded to transgress immediately, rather than seeking out some kosher food instead. When one thinks about it, the question is reversed. Why does the court only punish this person with 39 lashes after having committed such a terrible act? It is only because of God's mercy. The person did such a thing wrong and he hurt everybody in the whole world. He should have a bigger punishment, really. But you see, this is an important point over here. But even though he's on a negative about the punishment, he's just trying to bring out to you how important the person is. And I think, this is a side note, what I'm trying to explain is just that I think in today's society when, I saw on the internet, there's 7 billion people in the world, or 300 million people in the United States. Listen, what kind of percentage is one person? And it's 0.000 something or another. You can do the math yourself. But it's almost infinitesimal. What's 1 out of 300 million? What's 1 out of 7 billion? I'm not important. Where does it make a difference what I do? So that's your normal logical thought. And Judaism says, no, that is not true at all. It is just not true. Yeah, it's true that you're 1 out of 300 million, 1 out of 7 billion in the world. But on the other hand, if you look at yourself like we just said here, now everything totally equal, that if you would have a total, just think of it scales, and you put even a feather on one side, well, now it's not equal. You weighed it down. You can do percentages, and even if it's 49.9999999, and you, on the other hand, is 50.00001, you can just think like that. Well, which is greater? And if you're going to say which is greater, then even that 1 point, that one little decimal, 1 millionth, even if that's what you want to say, 1 billionth, well, then that's in the majority. If everything's totally equal, then one little feather and 1 billionth of a particle is going to decide it. So that's a very beautiful and deep idea, how important it is that people should realize how important their actions are in this world, because everything is in a balanced situation. It's very important to think that way and to have a positive attitude that way. Little things count. One of the central issues regarding the flight to the moon was the topic of cost. Billions of dollars were spent, money which could have been spent fueling decades of much-needed social programs. Instead, it was invested in this flight, which lasted just a few days. There is a lesson to be learned corresponding to the statement of our sages. Do not sit and weigh the value of the Torah's commandments. Rather, the lightest of the light and the weightiest of the weighty are equal. It would seem that this statement is self-contradictory. If there is no place for comparisons, how can we talk about lighter and weightier commandments? Indeed, there is a difference. Nonetheless, we are to fulfill them equally, with the same electricity, dedication, and attention, regardless to which of the two categories a particular commandment belongs. Why indeed should we fulfill them all equally? The answer may be derived from the flight to the moon. Here too there are major and minor issues. The space shuttle itself consists of parts whose manufacture requires much time, and whose complexity requires the involvement of the greatest scientists. Sometimes it is even necessary to create working groups among experts from different fields. All of this adds tremendously to the cost of the project. On the other hand, there are also simple parts for which no particular expertise is needed. These are components which are readily available, require no expert input, and therefore do not consume much time or money. In order for the space shuttle to work, both types are needed. Just as the craft will not fly without the complicated components, so too it will not leave the ground without the simplest of its parts. Recently, a journey to the moon had to be delayed because of a very simple problem. I mean, the Rebbe was writing this many, many years ago, but it's a still true story. One bolt was loose. It was a very simple matter. One need not be especially wise to tighten it. Yet when it comes to a mission, it makes no difference which detail is missing, a minor part or a major part. In order to reach the moon, each and every detail is essential. In fact, the bolt was not actually missing. It was there, but it wasn't fulfilling its purpose to attach two separate pieces. As a result, the mission had to be delayed. Thus, even the smallest component is not fulfilling its purpose and may affect the entire mission. The complex major parts also need the simple minor ones. The same is true in spiritual terms. Don't sit and weigh. There are commandments that are clearly delineated in the Torah, and there are customs that are not stated at all. Yet Jewish customs are Torah. They must be fulfilled with the same energy as the direct commands of the Torah. Of course, customs are not scriptural obligations. Indeed, generally one does not recite a blessing when performing a custom. And if one does, it is considered a blessing in vain. Moreover, if there is a conflict between a commandment and a custom, the commandment overrides the custom. Nonetheless, one should fulfill customs with the same excitement as one does commandments. As in the above example, although individuals with specialized expertise must ensure that not a single component is missing or dysfunctional, if they should not be personally involved in tightening screws and bolts. Regarding Torah study, we are told, one who is capable of in-depth study and instead dedicates himself only to quick perusal is guilty of wasting time from Torah. This too can we derive from the moon mission. Surely simple things are needed for the mission to be successful. However, if highly skilled people who should be involved in more complex matters busy themselves with the bolts, it would be a serious waste of human resources. It's very interesting, again, that they say let's say there's a baker and a diamond cutter. That someone who's a diamond cutter should not become a baker nor a farmer, jobs that are not as highly skilled. That if a person saying, well, don't you need bread? A baker is very important. Yeah, he really is. But if someone could do so much more for society, then why you're becoming a baker? You have to use your potential. That everything that's given to you is to be used. So you can't say, well, I'm a little smart, but it doesn't make a difference. Hey, wait a minute. Why do you have a higher IQ? Why are you smarter than the other person? Or if you have more technological know-how or you have good hands to do something, say, well, I'll do something less. Well, why were you given this? And you must be given this for a reason and therefore to use them. The same is true in other matters as well. Someone whose job is to deal with major issues may not squander his energies on relatively minor concerns. Nonetheless, in order to achieve the goal, both types of works are needed. And if minor components are of monumental importance and material concerns, where generally speaking bigger is better, how much more so is relevant in the realm of the spiritual, where quality is of greater import. To successfully land a man on the moon, a tremendous investment of effort and care was required to execute every detail according to plan. Yet despite all this, it is still no more than a pale metaphor for the journey of the Jewish soul, whose issues forth from beneath the throne of glory and travels all the way down to this lowly physical and material world. The distance to the moon is approximately 385,000 kilometers, and the final analysis, traveling there is qualitatively like the flight of a rocket within the Earth's atmosphere. It is just a greater distance. The soul's ascent is an incomparably greater journey. Above it, it is tied to the bundle of life with God, standing before him with love and fear. There it sees and experiences how God is the source of all life. There it sees and experiences how God, the entire physical existence, is no more than manifold limitation and contraction of his infinite energy. At the culmination of this descent, suddenly, in one drastic quantum-like drop, the soul descends from a high peak to a deep pit, to this physical and material world where the eternal truth of God is concealed and hidden. Here the divine presence is so eclipsed that it is possible for a person to transgress God's will without even realizing it. This descent is infinitely greater both qualitatively and quantitatively than the distance man must travel to reach even the most distant stars. Tremendous spiritual energy is invested to effect a soul's descent into this world, beyond any effort on the soul's part. Moreover, just as a successful moon launch requires proper timing and positioning, so does man's mission in the physical world. Much detailed planning goes into defining perimeters for each particular body is mapped to his specific soul at precisely the right time and location. All these considerations are needed in order to ease the soul's burden and make it easier for it to accomplish its mission, making the world into a dwelling place for God. The soul is sent down to this world with a very well-defined mission. Even the days and hours granted to it are exact, no more and no less than are needed to accomplish the soul's mission. The verse states, the days were fashioned and they are one for him. The fashioned days are exactly the number required to unite the world with its creator. In other words, the purpose of the soul's ascent is for the sake of a greater ascent, to become closer to God so that the spirit will return to God who gave it. Our job is merely to push various buttons. For example, opening our hearts and minds to God through putting on tefillin. We must dress ourselves in spacesuits, meaning be uniformed with mitzvahs, through wearing tzitzis, the talis, the covering with the fringes. Then he who sits in the heavens will direct everything in the best possible manner through his control panel, including if the Jew needs it, being awarded a medal by the nations of the world, as the verse states, blessed shall you be from all the nations. Now, in the past, it was commonly held, based on scientific conclusions, that such a journey was impossible, mainly because of the great speeds required. People claimed that the ship would break apart, burn up. Yet despite all these predictions, every stage of the mission was completed successfully. This serves as a lesson that rational speculation is not at all certain, nor should we regard it as such. It is always possible that in the future a person will see things very differently than he does now. Of course, science changes and develops constantly, but with all this development, we must always remember that man's intellect can never grasp God's plan, which must remain infinitely greater than we are. It is therefore evident that even if at some period in scientific development it seems that science devalues faith in God and the truth of Torah, one should nonetheless recognize that such challenges have no substance, since science cannot really negate faith at all. Some argue that the verse, the heavens belong to God and the earth he gave to human beings, provides clear proof that it would be impossible to land on the moon. According to their understanding, this meant that people have neither the right nor the ability to reach the heavenly spheres. The truth is that the word Shemayim, heaven, in the Torah has many different interpretations, starting with the birds of the heavens, all the way through to God is in heaven and you are on earth. It is interesting to note that King Solomon's famous prayer, these two very different interpretations appear together. When the heavens are withheld and there is no rain, and you hear in the heavens, would seem that there is some relationship between the two meanings. Whatever the case is, there is no evidence at all that the proof test purported intent is regarding heavenly bodies, even though it is said about them and God placed them in the skies in the heavens. The entire question has no basis in the first place. Would anyone assume that the verse, "The high mountains are for the wild goats, the rocks are places of refuge for the hares," means to imply that the people may not climb or sit on mountains or rocks? God created the heavenly spheres in order to give light, warmth, and energy. For this purpose, he set their place in the heavens far away from the earth. It wasn't intended to remove them from the arena of human engagement. The fact that God created the moon and set it high in the sky to provide light at night did not negate in any way the possibility that at some point in time man would land on the moon. The true meaning of the verse, "The heavens belong to God and the earth he gave to human beings," is, although God is everywhere, in this physical world as well as in the spiritual realms, the heavens, he established that man's place is on the earth, in the physical universe, including the physical heavens and everything that in any way affects humanity. Some people see the success of the moon mission as a test of faith. They reason as follows: a person may feel that we have reached such great accomplishments, things that were not even imaginable just decades ago. This may lead to the vain notion that my might and my strength of my hand have attained all of this for me. I did it all by myself. When faced with this test, these people remind themselves of the fact that God has facilitated these achievements. They are not disturbed from their prayers and Torah study by the latest news. This is especially true when they remember that Jews are a unique people, as the verse states, "And your nation and I, Moshe, will be distinguished from all the people on the face of the earth." They satisfy themselves that with this approach, they have already measured up to the religious challenge posed by space travel. However, that is not enough. We must derive from these journeys positive messages that help us strengthen our faith. It is true that faith itself is a basic quality of every Jew and as such does not require strengthening. However, its impact upon our intellect, emotions, and action does indeed need encouragement and strengthening. For if not, it will have no more than a superficial effect on our thinking. About such a limited degree of faith, there is Talmudic discussion about a thief who's standing at the mouth of his tunnel to burrow in, trying to break into a home, prays for success. "Master of the universe, help me." Well, of course, this is a contradiction, but the Talmud brings this out because if, on one hand, if you believe in God, well, why are you stealing, going against his will? And don't you care about God? Yeah, I'm going to steal anyway. Who cares about God, what he tells me to do? Well, then what are you praying to him for? So this is what happens, that sometimes, even if we have faith, we don't do exactly right. Of course, God himself does not become any greater by virtue of our recognition of his wondrous deeds, yet our awareness does not contribute substantially to our feelings. There is no comparison between a king over a small country and a king over a great and mighty one. Thus, the greater our recognition of how manifold are your creations, God, and how diverse are your creations, the more we recognize the vastness of the King of Kings' creation. The deeper and broader becomes our recognition of the greatness of their Creator. Lift your eyes up to heaven and see who created these. Maimonides explains what is the path to the love and fear of God, meditating upon his awesome and great actions and creations. The same is explained in Hasidic words, especially the Book of Philosophy. The more the one recognizes the vastness of creation, the greater is his perspective on the infinite greatness of God. This lesson is so powerfully clear and obvious that even the non-Jewish astronauts chose to read chapter 8 of Psalms while on the moon. What is man that you should remember him, and the Son of Man that you should pay him heed? Man's success in managing the world was given to him by God. You have made him but little lower than the angels, and have crowned him with glory and honor. You have put all things under his feet. God granted mankind dominion over all that he created, to a certain extent even over the moon and stars. so that he should recognize God's greatness. When he does so, his control should not cause him haughtiness, but rather love and fear of God, as the psalm concludes, God, Lord, how great is your name in all the earth. So this is a very beautiful idea about how we could take lessons and not just saying, well, science is supreme, but there is incredible idea that, again, we have to have faith, but we have to have intellect. And science and religion are not a contradiction. If anything, true science and religion are complementary towards each other because, again, God created the world. When the world means science, because science is how the world functions, and therefore we can learn more about godliness through science and looking at the deeper aspects what science teaches us. The Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Chassidus, actually said that everything you see and hear is a lesson in godliness. Everything is like in a function of godliness. The world is an example of godliness. So therefore, that when we see science or even like difficult issues that we don't understand, and we won't deal with when bad things happen to good people, which is always an important issue, but obviously it's not for now. Now we're looking for science. We're looking at practically the greatest accomplishment in our lifetime is going to the moon and space travel. But there's so many important lessons that we can derive from it in our service to the Creator, and we don't have to just be old-fashioned, so to speak, and put our head, be an ostrich and keep our heads into the sand. But in any case, buried in the sand, we can look at the newest and greatest science innovations where man's mind and logic has led him and derive even greater lessons and be more aware of godliness than less. Some people, always have thought the more science you learn, the less you understand of godliness. But it's just the opposite he's saying here. The more you understand science, you see how great God's world is. So let's be more aware of the world around us and be aware of God's creation. And I want to thank you for tuning into the Jewish View.